you took out a small 401k loan from your business early on back in 2012, and you turned that into $5 million. How was that possible? Like, what did you do? I'm sure it was through this concept of information arbitrage, but I guess what gave you the confidence to do something that a lot of people label very risky? And then what did you do with it to know that you were making a smart decision?
Yeah, that's I don't think any financial advisor would tell you that that's a great idea, right? But and some of this was forced too. So I took a $30,000 401k loan to buy a $360,000 condo in downtown Charleston. This was like my first downtown property. The one that I had owned before was in a suburb, and so this was kind of my shot at like seeing which way the city itself was growing. And so I came across this 50-year study that the local college had done. And I think we were like maybe 10, 15 years into the study. And so you could kind of see, some percentage of things that had already happened for the plan that was laid out. And so I'm like, okay, well, it's an old historic city. Maybe this takes 20 years to work. But I do have confidence that it'll work. And I just was super lucky with timing. I mean, it wasn't even 6 months. So everything, like I would go hang out there, go run. I was living downtown. I would go run to right in front of the condo and just kind of hang out and look, at the streets, right? Like, how sketchy is this? Am I okay walking around?
So it's a transitioning area where you're
totally. Yeah. And it's like the hottest. I mean, there's a Starbucks across the street now. So, which is like the measure for where to invest in real estate. Right. So, I mean, it didn't even take 6 months, and the development just like completely blew past that building. And I was fortunate to actually reset the values in that building. So, post 2008, 2009, I mean, I bought this in 2012. But post 2008, 2009, a lot of people just kind of hunkered down and stayed where they were and hoped things bounce back. And I wound up just buying a little 1-bedroom condo. And then from there, the next play, I held that for 2.5 years. I made like 31% in 30 months. And I lived in that for more than 2 years. So I moved that equity. I actually listed that place myself. The market was so hot back then. 2015, I listed it myself through a discount broker for like $500, and did all the like copy and pictures myself. Sold it for $30,000 more than the exact same 1-bedroom next door. Who also paid a realtor a commission, I might add. So walked with like an extra $50,000 from that guy, right? And just rolled it all into the next one. And I think that's like the other thing is I would continually bet on myself rolling it all into the next one, right? So bought the next one in 2017. And that was when I started to kind of, or I should say 2015 to 17, I lived in it. And started renting a room out of that house and had a new guest every 2 or 3 days. End of that first year, finally, some point in the year, I'm like, I should make this a business and, let me run this through a business account. And I kind of started just setting up the processes back then. And then at the end of that year, I made 2016, $28,000 in gross revenue, and I netted 20. So mostly, cleaning and taxes came out of it. And, I'm like, oh, I'm rich, So finally sitting on a little bit of cash. I'm like, okay, this is working. How do I grow this? And so ironically, I was actually working on a mobile app at the time. And my timing was off on that concept, looking for funding for probably like 45 days. And had a CTO on that who had a second business that was just really starting to catch fire. So we felt like a child dying. Not that I have one, but I mean, it was like depressing for 12, 18 months. And in the meantime, I just kind of kept this short-term rental thing going in the background. At some point, sold that house into a duplex, and then started buying these boutique properties. So it's just been it's been like this slow build. And then the last couple years, post COVID, it's been crazy. So it's to your point, if you keep growing 100% a year, at some point that starts to be really, really material and significant.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, to follow sort of the roadmap of what you did, obviously, if you take out $30,000 out of your 401k and you go, try to bet it on something that's going to potentially be a grand slam or a bust, maybe investing in a tech company or crypto or something like that, then maybe you get lucky. But what you did is bet on things that had solid fundamentals. And it wasn't like you're trying to get rich overnight. It was like, okay, I'm going to ride this out. And luckily the fundamentals worked in your favor over time. And you just kept, evolving or moving it to the next larger property. And it pays off over time. That's impressive. That's amazing. So last question before we get into, I want to hear about the mastermind that you run. But I'm curious from a personal standpoint, because I think we talk a lot about the investing side of things. But I think we can personally, we are our own barometer of how much success we have. And the investment side of things doesn't really matter if personally we don't do certain practices or have the right mindset. So what do you do personally that helps you stay at the top of your game and continue to evolve and be better every year?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is who you surround yourself with, right? The old Jim Rohn, where the sum of the 5 people we spend most time around. So I think I had felt like really intellectually stagnant for a while. And a couple of years ago, I joined this mastermind called GoBundance. I think there's like 800 or 900 guys in it now across the US and even in Canada. But yeah, I mean, that's probably been the single biggest thing. And just changing the way that you think about things, right? And I don't think really until even last year, right? And despite experiencing some of the success, I don't think I realized how limiting I was being with myself until, in the last like 6 to 9 months, right? And as you start to kind of remove, you mentioned blinders, you start to remove those blinders and you really start to kind of see things for what they are and really see the potential. It's a beautiful thing, right? And you want to help other people with that, right? So, yeah, I mean, I've got a great group of guys in that mastermind. They split you into what they call pods. So there's 5 people in my pod. We meet on Mondays and Fridays. But I mean, it's just a great barometer, right? And it's this mini accountability constantly, right? So I do this daily journal as well too. Super basic, but it's kind of a kind of an offshoot of the Miracle Morning by Hal Elrod. But it takes gratitude and then small goals. And just little things, what are the 3 things I'm grateful for? What are the 3 things I need to accomplish to make today great? And then you do it in the morning and at night. And then, so at night you're looking at, why was today awesome? Is there anything I would have done differently? And then doing little affirmations along with that. So, I've been doing that now. I mean, every day for like the last 4 months or so. And I think what I realized with that is even the giant goals, right? Where they're just so big. You look at them every day and you're like, oh man, I need to do that, but it's just so big. I don't even want to start tackling it. But having this force you into these little bite-sized daily goals, it takes it a long way.